Welcome to How to Trade the Markets Better Than Anyone Else. The goal of this program is 1. To teach process design. 2. Make you competent not only in designing processes that work for trading, but also for any discipline. Now, we're going to jump right in. This course may seem like philosophy and principles for portions. It will go slow and sometimes fast. Some portions may be exciting, some may bore you. But what is sure is that we're designing a process that will work for you. I want to start with the lesson of observation. The world is full of a surprising amount of detail. One of the main problems of perception is the lack of ability to differentiate difference from substance. That may sound unfamiliar to you, but let me use an example to illustrate. Assume two brothers are building a set of stairs, and one of them is comfortable with 10th grade trigonometry, and the other is okay with tracing basic measurements onto the boards. An experienced hand will tell you that both will work, but an inexperienced hand will be uncomfortable with trying unfamiliar methods. In this way, neither brother can see that they have begun their mission without the necessary and fundamental information that is crucial to the success of their stairs. Accordingly, they may not be able to see that trigonometry and an intuitive understanding of basic geometry in rough carpentry are basically two methods that will achieve the same ends. In this way, each of them has placed confidence in the difference of their perception versus the substance. If we go out to any state government website, we can see that stairs have tolerances for what humans can walk on safely. This is backed by study and scientific investigation. This means the substance of what is being created fits into a rough hole, so to speak. It's got a container. There are definite limits and boundaries. The difference between the two approaches were not built on the foundation of that knowledge, but rather their personal preference and approach of a starting point. Between the government-supplied view, call that the knowledge, and these two rough carpenters, there was a gap in their starting point. Think about that as a trader. How did you start? Was it based on fundamentally sound, tested, and researched ideas about how and why the market moves the way that it does, or a preferred method of visualizing it? This is where the two come together. As a trader, you're looking for substance, not difference. But few have designed a process with substance. They've simply designed something that's different. Perhaps this is why traders jump ideas so often. The key to this idea is in designing your own process, you must have the ability to perceive substance versus difference. Let's turn our attention to the DNA of substance. Details make up the knowledge that defines substance. Details you'll find are fractal. I'm Joshua. I'm human. I have blood. That blood has cells. Cells have parts. Those parts work through enzymes. Those enzymes contain DNA. DNA may in fact have fractal parts beneath it, details as of yet unknown to us. Yet when DNA was not known, it was. Did you get that? When we didn't know what DNA was, it still existed. The detail was there. We just couldn't perceive it. The DNA is Joshua. Joshua is Joshua, but so are the enzymes, the cells, the blood, the humanity, and my person in the name of Joshua. This may sound like pointless meandering, but it's not. The proficiency you will have by understanding process design will be limited only by your willingness to curiously pursue substance, and the key to unlocking that substance is how the details work together to make the body, referring to their metaphor. Now, just so that you don't lose the plot and you don't think that this is philosophy for philosophy's sake, to use the body and the DNA analogy, our DNA, or even the hidden DNA, those fractal parts that we don't see yet, are going to be things like opens, closes, volumes, indicators, time of day, seasonal tendencies, overall strategies, cross-correlational pairs. All of those things make up the vernacular and the language of our DNA. We have to understand the parts we understand and put a scope on the things that we don't understand. With you as a trader beginning without a sound and fundamental process, I know for a fact that there are things that you do not see. So I'm using this paradigm to help bring you along so that you can find the things that are as of yet invisible to you, but in your line of sight. Now, allow me to read a passage from a blog post that I highly encourage you to read. JohnSalvatiere.org has a captivating point that the world is full of a surprising amount of details. I led off with this section. And I quote, "Before you've noticed important details, they are, of course, basically invisible. It's hard to put your attention on them because you don't even know what you're looking for. But after you see them, they quickly become so integrated into your intuitive models of the world that they have become essentially transparent. You remember the insights that were crucial in learning to ride a bike or drive? How about the details and insights that have led you to get good at the thing you're good at? This means it's really easy to get stuck in your current way of seeing and thinking about things. Frames are made out of details that seem important to you. The important details you haven't noticed are invisible to you, and the details you have noticed seem completely obvious. You see right through them. This makes all the difference. It is difficult to imagine how you could be missing something so important. That's why if you ask an anti-climate change person what would convince you that you're wrong, you'll likely get back an answer like, if it turned out that all my data was faked, or some other extremely strong requirement. Conversely, what they should be saying is, I would start doubting if I noticed numerous important mistakes in the details of my side's data and my colleagues didn't want to talk about it. Now, the second case is much more likely than the first, but you'll never see it if you're not paying close attention. If you're trying to do impossible things, this effect should chill you to your bones. It means that you could be intellectually stuck at this very moment with the evidence right in front of your face and you just can't see it. This problem is not easy to fix, but it is not impossible either. I've mostly fixed it for myself. The direction for improvement is clear. Seek detail you would normally not notice about the world. When you go for a walk, notice the unexpected detail in a flower or the seams of a road and what that implies about how it was built. When you talk to someone who's smart but just seems so wrong, figure out what details seem important to them and why. In your work, notice how the meeting actually wouldn't have accomplished much if Sarah hadn't pointed out that one thing. As you learn, notice which details actually change how you think. If you wish not to get stuck, seek to perceive what you have not yet perceived." End quote. Observation applied. Now, let's turn our attention to the trader's workbench. The chart. In this example, I'm using a futures chart of the S&P 500. You're looking at the September contract of 2022. What do you see? What do you feel? What are you thinking? Where are you? I want you to pause the video and write down at least 3 things you thought while you were watching. Did they have anything to do with the video? Were you anticipating my message? Were you bored, distracted, or curious? The answers to those questions reveal either how interested you are in this moment or your willingness to notice details. Both observations are crucial to you making progress in process design. Now, let's turn our attention to the overlooked and crucial element of good process design, the lesson of invalidation. At what point are you wrong about an idea? Refer to the climate change example I mentioned. Remember, most of us are extremists in our beliefs, meaning even if we lack the vocabulary or the conscientious practice, we still insist on exerting them when provoked, our beliefs that is. How many times have you been cut off in traffic and reacted poorly? Did you need to rehearse that? Were you taught it? Did you think about it ahead of time and decide that telling someone that they're number one is going to be your planned response? Yet, when the circumstances were right, you delivered your strongest belief. You. Crazy, right? One of the main dilemmas in process design is having enough experience to create an invalidation point. This experience cannot be faked or diluted down into a simple phrase like buy low and sell high. The invalidation point of any process is based on the probability that the outcome is less likely to be achieved than not. It's a simple formula. Meaning at some point during the course of a process, that probably does tip. While it's tipping, details are emerging. As those details emerge, experience interprets that as unfolding value. This is something we're going to talk about more deeply in the future. Through experience and sound process design, the actor, trader, operator, whichever you are, makes choices that concern that process. These choices are founded in research, study, testing, knowledge, and ultimately the substance that is made up of details. Remember that chart I showed you. What did you see? Did you see that price was acting the way that it was? Did you see the correlated relationships between the highs and the lows and the opens and the closes? Did you see that the chart looked like it had no real meaning to you other than just being a chart? Or did you see a choreographed dance of how price would move from one location to another? Consider this example. Braveheart. Hold, hold, hold. This is a common theme in trading. Once a trader reaches a certain level of competence, holding the trade to its completed state usually surfaces as a primary obstacle. Now, I want to ask you a question. What did William Wallace know? Now, he knew several things that gave him an edge on the strategy he was choosing to employ. But before I list out the things I observed, pause the video and tell me, what do you think he knew? And bear with me here, because what I'm trying to illustrate to you is the amount of assumptions that are going into the idea. How many things can you perceive? Got it? Here's my list. Number 1, the army he was facing was stronger, faster, better equipped, and mortally dangerous. Number 2, his army were just common farmers. Number 3, their mission was money. Number 4, his mission was freedom and virtue. Consider this specific point as it relates to how your fervent determination would change if all you were risking your life for was money. But many will risk their life for a closely held belief. Number 5, he knew his enemy's pride, that they would be overconfident. Number 6, in his enemy's pride, they would possess near certain conviction that these farmers would scatter once the horses were bearing down on them. Number 7, that they would mistake their simple nature for a lack of military competence. Strange. You'd think that that strength actually would play a role, and in fact, the only role it played is to work against them. But that detail was only available to the observer, the one who was willing to be neutral and just ascertain what things really were. Number 8, they would never suspect for a minute that farmers would stand their ground and have all of their strength used against them by driving pikes into their greatest strength, completely neutralizing their advantage and demoralizing them. Number 9, he knew that if he didn't summon the courage to their beliefs in freedom, they probably would run. Number 10, if they did not face certain death here and now, they would face certain death by not facing it. Thus, hold, hold, hold. If you take any of these elements away, the process fails. If the pride of the enemy is not present, it fails. If they didn't mistake their military competence for something else, it fails. If they don't hold their ground, it fails. This is how you break apart, process, and find your invalidation point. This is more than being clever. This is more than military strategy. Put this idea on 100 battlefields, and it's doubtful that these elements will make more than one battle. That is not because strategies are non-transferable. They certainly are. But only when the elements, let's call them the details, are present. Trading is exactly the same, because process is exactly the same. Process is what leads to results, not hope, not talent, not skill, not even experience. Process is the key. How can I say that? Well, a computer has no experience, skill, or talent, but its processor generates the results, period. Returning to our point, at what point is something invalid? Remember what we said earlier. Different perceptions is not the same as substance. We must learn to differentiate. With this notion in mind, I'm going to invite you to look at your charts. Pick any location on those charts and walk through this exercise. Imagine that you've walked into your office, and on your computer you see a trade underway. You didn't place the trade, a cat or your kid did. It was an accident. But rather than panic, you're going to curiously watch it to see what happens. Interestingly, you're in the money. This is the exercise. Now, go to your charts, pick that price, mark a line, and scroll to a place where you're significantly in the money. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter if it's long or short. It doesn't matter what time frame, but I prefer something higher than 5 minutes, and you'll see why shortly. Now, start observing the details you see. Change the bars. Go to a Renko. Go to a point and figure. Now go to time. Now go to volume. Look at the data in as many ways as you can and answer these questions. At what point did the market start to indicate that the trade was over? Did any visualization indicate that faster than another? What did it do? Be specific. If you must invent your own vocabulary, do so. But here are a few glossaries of market events that you can pull into your vocabulary. Now, when you think you've discovered that failure, zoom in on that area and drop the time frame. Look at a smaller picture and repeat the process. Write down what you see. There's nothing wrong about any conclusion that you come to. Use as much detail as you possibly can. Try and structure your thoughts. Use your imagination. You're a researcher who stumbled upon a new language. You don't completely understand it yet, but your job is not to judge. You just observe and report. You are completely certain that by understanding this language, you will release something very special. Some understanding that will completely change your perspective. Keep the list of the things that you see, and in our next video, I will show you what I see and how we can compare ourselves.